Welcome back, dear friends, to our sanctuary of quiet reflection. Tonight, we journey into a space that is often misunderstood, the intersection of profound suffering and brilliant creativity. We are going to explore 10 extraordinary works of art that were created within the walls of asylums, hospitals, and psychiatric wards. These are not merely artifacts of illness, they are triumphs of the human spirit. They are windows into worlds that most of us will never visit, captured by individuals who used art as a lifeline, a language, and a way to survive the darkness of their own minds. In the history of art, the asylum has often been a place of confinement. But for these artists, it also became a place of strange liberation within those cold stone walls. Away from the pressures of society and the judgment of the outside world, they found the freedom to invent new languages of color and form. Some of these artists were already famous, while others were completely unknown until their work was discovered in the dusty attics of hospitals, long after they were gone. As we begin, I invite you to settle into a place of deep comfort. Let your breathing slow down. Imagine the soft rhythmic sound of a brush moving across canvas, or the scrape of a pencil on rough paper. We are entering a space where time moves differently. We are going to look past the diagnoses and the medical records to see the raw, pulsing beauty of the art itself. Let us begin our meditation on the masterpieces of the shadows. 1. The Starry Night by Vincent van Gogh. We begin with perhaps the most famous painting in the world, created in 1889 within the walls of the St. Paul de Mausole Asylum in Saint-Rémy-de-Provence. To understand this painting, we must understand how Vincent van Gogh arrived at this place of confinement and refuge. In the final years of his life, Vincent experienced recurring mental crises that left him exhausted, terrified, and increasingly aware of his own fragility. His time in the town of Arles had begun with optimism and creative intensity, but it soon descended into emotional volatility, paranoia, and isolation. The most infamous incident occurred in December of 1888, following a violent argument. In a state of psychological distress, Vincent mutilated his own ear and delivered it to a woman at a local brothel. The event shocked the town and marked a turning point in his life. Vincent was hospitalized, released, and then hospitalized again as his episodes grew more frequent. He came to the painful realization that he could no longer trust himself to live alone. In May of 1889, Vincent voluntarily admitted himself to the asylum at St. Paul de Mausole. The institution was housed in a former monastery surrounded by lavender fields, olive groves, and the low rolling hills of Provence. Though it was a place of restraint, it was also a place of quiet. Vincent was given 2 small rooms, one to sleep in and one to use as a studio. He was permitted to paint under supervision and to walk in the gardens during periods of calm. The Starry Night was painted during one such period. Vincent was not allowed to paint in his bedroom at night, so he spent countless hours staring through the iron-barred window, memorizing the shapes of the hills, the village below, and the vast sky above. He wrote to his brother Theo about the morning star, which we now know was the planet Venus, describing it as unusually bright and commanding in the pre-dawn sky. The painting itself is not a literal representation of what Vincent saw. Instead, it is a synthesis of observation, memory, and inner vision. The village at the bottom of the canvas does not resemble Saint Remy. Its church, spire, and clustered houses recall the Dutch towns of his childhood. The cypress tree in the foreground looms like a dark flame, traditionally associated with death and mourning, yet here it reaches upward, bridging earth and sky. The swirling patterns of the heavens have fascinated astronomers, psychologists, and art historians alike. Some see in them the turbulence of Vincent's mind, others the influence of contemporary astronomical illustrations showing spiral nebulae. The sky feels alive, restless, charged with movement, as if the universe itself were breathing. Within the walls of the asylum, Vincent transformed isolation into transcendence. He could not escape his illness, but he could transform it. The starry night stands as proof that even under restraint, even in profound psychological pain, the human mind can reach outward and create something that feels infinite. 2. The Maze by William Kurelek. We move forward to the middle of the 20th century, to the Maudsley Hospital in London. In 1953, a young Canadian artist named William Kurelek was admitted for treatment of severe depression, anxiety, and what doctors described as a breakdown of the self. Kurelek had traveled to Europe in search of artistic recognition, but instead found himself overwhelmed by feelings of inadequacy, spiritual despair, and self-loathing. The Maudsley Hospital was known for its progressive psychiatric approaches, and its doctors quickly recognized that Kurelek's compulsive drawing was not a symptom to be suppressed, but a lifeline. He was encouraged to draw as a form of therapy, a way to externalize thoughts that he could not articulate. The maze is the most powerful result of this process. The painting depicts a human skull split open, revealing a labyrinth of tightly packed rooms. Each room contains a vivid memory or fear. There are scenes of childhood, bullying in frozen Canadian schoolyards, moments of parental coldness, religious terror, sexual shame, and crushing professional expectations. At the center of the maze lies a small naked figure curled into itself, representing Kurelek as a child and as an adult trapped within the architecture of his own psyche. There is no clear exit. The corridors turn inward, not outward, reinforcing the claustrophobic nature of depression. The painting functions as a psychological map. By organizing his pain into discrete compartments, Kurelek gained a sense of control over experiences that had previously felt overwhelming. The meticulous detail forces the viewer to confront discomfort directly. There is no escape from the gaze. During his hospitalization, Kurelek underwent occupational therapy and eventually converted to Roman Catholicism, which he believed provided a moral and spiritual framework strong enough to hold his fractured identity. After his release, he returned to Canada and built a successful career, though his work always retained a haunting psychological depth. The Maze is not simply a portrait of illness. It is a record of an attempt to survive illness. It reminds us that art can serve as a diagnostic tool, a confession, and a form of rescue all at once. 3. The Kander Valley in the Bernese Oberland by Adolf Wolfli. In the early 20th century, the Waldow Clinic in Switzerland became the permanent home of Adolf Wolfli, a man whose life was defined by tragedy and isolation. Wolfli had a horrific childhood, losing his mother at a young age and being passed between foster homes where he suffered unimaginable abuse. After a series of run-ins with the law, he was committed to the Waldow Clinic in 1895 and remained there until his death in 1930. For the first few years of his confinement, he was violent and erratic, often kept in isolation cells. Everything changed when he was given a pencil and paper by a sympathetic doctor named Walter Morgenthaler. Wolfli became a master of what we now call art brut. He lived in a tiny cell for 35 years, and in that time he created a massive imaginary universe consisting of over 25,000 pages of drawings and text. His most famous work is an epic narrative where he reinvented his own life as Saint Adolf II, a hero who traveled through space and time. His drawings, like the Candor Valley, are characterized by an intense, rhythmic repetition. Every millimeter of the paper is filled with intricate patterns, bird-like symbols he called vocalus, and even musical notations. For a trumpet he played in his mind. Wolfli used the simplest materials, cheap pencils, and the gray packing paper provided by the hospital. He would trade his drawings with doctors and visitors for tobacco and extra food. To the medical world of the time, his work was seen merely as a symptom of his dementia, but to the art world, it was a revelation of pure creativity. His drawings were not just pictures, they were the bricks and mortar of a private fortress. In the silence of the asylum, he built an entire cosmos with its own geography, history, and music. He was a king in a cell of his own making, showing us that the imagination is a vast territory that no wall can truly contain. His work is a testament to the human need to create order and beauty out of a life of absolute chaos. He proved that even when the body is locked away, the mind can colonize the stars. 4. The Kaleidoscope Cats by Louis Wain. Louis Wain was one of the most popular illustrators of the Victorian era. He was famous for his humorous drawings of cats that behaved like humans, cats playing cards, cats at the theater, and cats wearing monocles. However, his life was marked by sorrow, including the early death of his wife and the onset of what historians believe was schizophrenia. By 1924, his behavior had become so erratic that he was committed to the pauper ward of Springfield Mental Hospital. When the public learned of his situation, famous figures like H.G. Wells and even the Prime Minister intervened to have him moved to the more comfortable surroundings of Bethlem Royal Hospital and later Knapsbury. During his years in the hospital, Wain's art underwent a terrifying and beautiful transformation. His cats began to change. They were no longer domestic pets in human clothes. They became cosmic entities. In his series of Kaleidoscope, or Electric Cats, the feline form dissolves into intricate, symmetrical patterns of vibrant color and jagged energy. The fur becomes a series of fractal lines, and the eyes become intense, swirling orbs that seem to vibrate with power. Some medical professionals argued that these changes tracked the progression of his psychosis, showing a mind moving away from the physical world and into the geometric structures of the unconscious. Wain spent his days in the hospital gardens, Surrounded by the colony of stray cats that lived on the grounds, he spoke to them as if they were his closest friends. He saw a hidden language of electricity and magnetism in their presence. His asylum work is a bridge between the figurative and the abstract. It shows a mind that, while losing its grip on the ordinary world, was gaining a vision of a hidden radiant reality. He turned the isolation of the ward into a laboratory of light, proving that even as a mind becomes fragmented, it can still produce a vision of extraordinary harmony. 5. The Ghost of a Flea by William Blake. William Blake lived his entire life in a state of visionary isolation that many of his contemporaries viewed as madness. While he was never physically committed to an asylum, he resided in a self-imposed exile from a society that rejected his radical ideas. Blake claimed to see spirits from a very young age, famously seeing angels in the trees of Peckham Rye. By the early 19th century, he was living in poverty in London, dismissed by the artistic establishment as an unfortunate lunatic. The Ghost of a Flea was created in 1819, inspired by a vision he experienced during a session with the astrologer John Varley. Blake claimed the ghost of a flea appeared to him and told him that fleas were inhabited by the souls of men who were bloodthirsty and greedy in life. In the painting, the creature is a muscular, scaly giant with a terrifyingly human face, its tongue lolling out as it holds a cup to catch blood. It stands between heavy stage curtains, suggesting that the spirit world is a grand drama constantly playing out just beyond our sight. Blake's asylum was the world of his own imagination. He refused to follow the rules of the Royal Academy or the rationalism of the Enlightenment. He believed that the imagination was the true human existence, and that the physical world was merely a shadow. To the people of his time, he was a madman talking to ghosts. To us, he is a prophet who captured the raw spiritual energy of the human psyche. He reminds us that what society calls madness is often just a different, more intense way of seeing the truth. He stood in the shadows of London and looked at the sun, leaving behind images that remain as vital and disturbing today as they were 200 years ago. 6. The Red Book by Carl Jung. Carl Jung, the founder of analytical psychology, underwent a period of profound psychological distress between 1913 and 1930. This was a time of inner work that followed his professional break from Sigmund Freud. Jung found himself overwhelmed by vivid hallucinations and terrifying visions of a global apocalypse. He felt he was standing on the edge of a total psychotic break. Instead of seeking external treatment, he turned his private study into a personal asylum. Embarking on a daring experiment he called the confrontation with the unconscious. He documented this journey in a massive leather-bound volume with thick parchment pages known as Liber Novus or the Red Book. Jung used art as his primary tool for survival. He painted intricate mandalas, fearsome demons, and ancient gods in a style that mimicked medieval illuminated manuscripts. He found that by giving a physical shape and a brilliant color to his internal monsters, he could prevent them from devouring his mind. The book is a visual record of a man navigating the darkest depths of the human soul and finding a way back to the light. The Red Book was so personal and so potentially scandalous that his family kept it hidden in a Swiss bank vault for nearly 50 years after his death. It was only published in 2009. It shows us that the line between genius and madness is often a thin, vibrating thread. Young used his brush to build a bridge between his waking life and his dream world. His work in the asylum of his own study proved that the images we find in our darkest moments are not just symptoms of illness, but the very keys to our transformation and healing. 7. The Fairy Fellers Master Stroke by Richard Dadd. Richard Dadd was a brilliant star of the Victorian art scene until 1843, when a trip to Egypt triggered a violent paranoid delusion. He became convinced that he was being hunted by the devil and that the god Osiris had ordered him to perform a sacrifice. Upon returning to England, he killed his father and fled to France, where he was eventually captured and committed to Bethlehem Royal Hospital, the original Bedlam. He would spend the rest of his long life in institutions, eventually moving to the newly built Broadmoor Hospital. Inside the wards of Bedlam, Dadd was given art supplies and a quiet space to work. He spent 9 years on a single painting, The Fairy Fellers Master Stroke. It is a work of impossible detail, painted with brushes so thin they consisted of only a few hairs. The painting depicts a hidden world of fairies and goblins living in a thicket of oversized grass and wildflowers. The focus is hyper-realistic, every blade of grass and hazelnut shell rendered with a precision that feels both beautiful and suffocating. The master stroke of the title refers to a tiny woodcutter poised to crack a nut, a moment of frozen, infinite tension. Dadd found a strange, meditative peace in the act of painting. The meticulous nature of his work allowed him to quiet the voices in his head. He was a prisoner in a stone room, yet his canvases provided him with a gateway to an enchanted forest where the rules of the ordinary world did not apply. His work in the asylum is a testament to the redemptive power of craft. He used the limited space of his cell to create a world of infinite depth. He lived in Bedlam, but his soul resided in a land of myth and magic, proving that the human mind can find liberty even in the most profound state of confinement. 8. The Prinzhorn Collection, Sculptures in the Early 20th Century. A German psychiatrist and art historian named Hans Prinzhorn transformed the way we understand the relationship between mental health and creativity. He began collecting art created by patients in psychiatric hospitals across Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. He was not interested in professional training. He was looking for the raw, unmediated expression of the human spirit. Among this collection are extraordinary wooden carvings created by anonymous patients who had been stripped of their identities and their freedom. Many of these artists used whatever materials were at hand. One patient, known only as Carl Jensken, created a series of small, haunting wooden figures using scraps of firewood and a smuggled kitchen knife. These sculptures often depict distorted human forms, religious idols, or strange, hybrid animals. They possess a raw, primitive power that predates the innovations of modern artists like Picasso and more. For these anonymous creators, carving was a way to maintain a sense of self in an environment designed to erase it. One figure, a small man with his arms wrapped tightly around his own body, seems to embody the very essence of institutional isolation. The Prinzhorn collection proved that the urge to create is as fundamental as the urge to breathe. These sculptures are physical prayers, expressions of a desperate need to communicate when all other avenues are closed. They remind us that even in the most desolate wards, the spirit is still working, still carving, still trying to leave a mark. These anonymous masterpieces are the silent witnesses of thousands of lives that were lived in the shadows of the 20th century. They show us that art is not a luxury, but a vital necessity for the survival of the human soul. 9. The Cradles of the Soul by Elise Corbaz. Elise Corbaz was a French governess who, in 1918, developed a delusional obsession with the German Emperor William II. She was diagnosed with schizophrenia and committed to an asylum in Lausanne, Switzerland, where she remained for the rest of her life. For years, she lived in a state of near total silence, but in secret, she began to create a vast body of work using materials she scrounged from the hospital grounds. Wrapping paper, cardboard, and juice from crushed flower petals or toothpaste for pigment. Her work is a lush, colorful tapestry of romantic fantasy. She created large-scale drawings of voluptuous women with striking blue eyes, dressed in velvet and gold, locked in the embrace of handsome uniformed soldiers. She called her works the cradles of the soul. Her art was a way to overwrite the gray, clinical reality of the asylum with a world of royal drama and eternal passion. She often sewed multiple pieces of paper together with thread to create massive panoramas that covered the walls of her room. Corbaz's drawings are a testament to the power of desire as a tool for self-preservation. In her mind, she was not a patient in a ward. She was a queen in a palace, a lover in a grand romance. She used her vibrant reds and deep blues to shield herself from the coldness of her environment. By creating her own beauty, she maintained her dignity and her identity against the crushing weight of the institution. She lived by the rules of the doctors, but her soul obeyed only the laws of her own heart. She reminds us that the human spirit will always find a way to dream in color, no matter how gray the world becomes. 10. The Scream Lithograph by Edvard Munch. Edvard Munch, the artist who famously captured the modern sense of existential dread, spent 8 months in a private psychiatric clinic in Copenhagen in 1908. He had suffered a massive nervous breakdown fueled by chronic alcoholism, hallucinations, and the paralyzing fear of his own success. He described his state as walking on the edge of a great abyss. The clinic, run by Dr. Daniel Jacobson, was a place of rest and structure where Munch was encouraged to continue his work as part of his healing process, while the original painting of the Scream was created years earlier. It was during his time in the clinic that Munch revisited and refined his most famous themes through lithography and sketching. The asylum provided him with the safety he needed to look into the abyss without falling into it. His work from this period is stripped down and raw, focusing on the essential lines of human suffering. He also painted portraits of his doctors and nurses, attempting to ground himself in the reality of the people who were caring for him. Much experience in the clinic shows that the asylum can be a place of recovery and reorganization. He used the quiet and the medical structure to rebuild his shattered nerves. He famously said that he did not want to get rid of his suffering because his art needed it, but he needed to learn how to live with it. By facing his demons in a controlled environment, he was able to return to the world and continue one of the most influential careers in art history. He reminds us that even the most terrifying scream can, with time and care, be turned into a profound song of survival and a testament to the resilience of the human mind. And so, dear friends, we reach the end of our journey through the masterpieces created in the shadows, from the swirling celestial heights of Van Gogh to the golden, internal maps of Carl Jung. We have seen that the asylum is not just a place of loss. It is also a place of extraordinary finding. These 10 works tell a story of incredible resilience. They remind us that the human spirit is an unquenchable flame that can never be fully extinguished, even when it is trapped in the darkness of illness or the confinement of a hospital ward. It will always reach for the light. It will always find a way to create beauty out of pain and meaning out of chaos. These artists did not just make art, they made a way to be free within their own minds. As you drift off to sleep, let the vibrant colors and the brave, honest lines of these masterpieces fill your imagination. Think of the courage it took to pick up a brush or a pencil when the world felt like it was ending. Remember that within you too is a creative force that can weather any storm and find beauty in the most unexpected places. May your dreams be a sanctuary of peace and a garden of infinite, colorful possibility. Sleep well, dear friends, and know that even in the deepest shadow, there is a star waiting to be painted. Good night.